You are in your truth-telling era. I think there comes a point where staying quiet starts to feel like self-betrayal, right? Where you realize that it's not even about confronting somebody or being angry or being dramatic, but that something in you, something that is internal, completely shifts. And you realize that that moment that you keep nodding along to people or other things are actually costing you your self-respect. You realize that those moments where you say, I'm fine, but you're feeling that intensity within you, within your body, that tenseness, you know, you start to ask yourself, like, it's not even worth it. Why am I here? Why am I feeling like this? And I think you are having the breakthrough that is necessary to be and to embark on this era, because this era, this truth-telling era, is not easy. And it doesn't necessarily require you to be loud to tell the world that you are in your truth-telling era, but your actions are going to show that this is the point at which you are, okay? And so I want to talk about what happens during this moment. And you're probably feeling these as well, that you can no longer pretend that you are okay. And I think there's a clear moment that you've reached where your system is like realizing that if I agree to this thing, if I do this thing, it's going to cost me. It's going to cost me myself. And by the way, I do want to say that this isn't about someone else lying to you. This becomes more about yourself. It becomes about how much you have repressed yourself. You know, it's like you knew the moments. How often did you know something was happening and you chose to ignore? How often did you feel that discomfort? How often did you sense the misalignment? But you still chose silence, right? Because it felt safer than disruption. It felt safer than having someone question you or being questioned. And it's like you know that the truth didn't vanish, but you buried it. You buried it because you felt like you had to adapt. You had to adapt yourself because you needed the relationship to work. You needed something to work. You needed someone to show up for you. But I also feel like you're seeing something so clearly right now, and it's so important that in this era that you realize that repression is not discernment. And by that I mean, you know, I look at it this way, right? Discernment is when you say, I see something clearly, and I'm going to choose to do it anyway. I'm going to choose to do it deliberately, right? That's discernment, because you've seen it. And so discernment comes from awareness and a choice that you make. However, repression, this feeling of repression comes from awareness as well, but suppression of that awareness, right? So the example that I can give is, I see it clearly. Repression is when you say, I see it clearly, but I'm going to ignore it anyway, right? I'm going to choose to unsee it. At that point, that is where the repression enters. And so I feel like in the past, for you, that moment of repression or that silence, it may have felt mature, it may have felt strategic, or it may have felt wise. But now in this era, you're feeling like, you know what? This feels heavy. This is lingering and it's not resolving. I don't want this. I don't want to feel like this. And I think your body does know the difference. It really does. Your body does know the difference. Even if your mind tries to find a way to rationalize it, because sometimes our mind can tell us something, right? but your body is feeling completely different. And so I think in this truth-telling era, you are in a state of authenticity, and I don't even think you're striving to be authenticity. I don't think you're striving to be authentic. It just feels like the natural state to be in. And it's happening so effortlessly. And that's because you're not trying to be real. You're just being you without filtering yourself, so that it'll be like easier for others to handle. Yeah, exactly. Easier for others to handle. And I think this era for you right now, it's like you're managing, you've kind of stopped managing impressions, right? And I don't think this is about confidence. So maybe using the word alignment might feel better to say, because I feel like you're finding that you're speaking more plainly now, right? You don't feel like you need to justify yourself with every little thing. You're speaking a lot more plainly. Yeah, speaking plainly. And you're also pausing less before you respond to something, because not everything requires a reaction right away. And I also feel like you're not having to over-explain yourself anymore. And I don't think this is because you're hardened, that this truth-telling era is meant to kind of like harden you and to make you feel like, oh, you know what, I can do this, blah, blah. This isn't about that. I just feel that you're in this state where you're no longer fragmented. You're not feeling fragmented. Right? But the thing is about this truth-telling era is that it does come with a cost. It comes with a cost. Because when you choose your truth, and when you choose truth, it also means you're going to have to accept that not everyone is willing to hear it. Even if you're right, and even if you're wrong, not everyone is going to be willing to hear it. And you know what? They're allowed to feel that way. And I think the reason why this era might feel uncomfortable for some people, I think for some of you, you might be realizing or feeling as though you're losing friends, you're losing companions, relationships are starting to feel like, meh, I'm not sure. And this goes for work, this goes for family, this goes for groups that you're within. You're realizing that there is a cost to this. And the reason being is because some people preferred you when you were quieter. Yeah. Some people preferred you when you were perhaps more accommodating to them. And also perhaps where your boundaries just seemed a little bit more, flexible than perhaps this era is requiring you to be. And so I think right now, it's important that now that you're in this truth-telling era, that you realize that, dynamics will change, and that's okay. They will change not because you're doing something wrong, but in a way because this honesty is going to remove what was holding those connections together, right? What was keeping it intact. So this era that you're in, it doesn't make you aggressive, right? It's not about being aggressive. But I will tell you, it is going to make you exact. If there's anything you can take away from this video, it's about being exact in this era. Being precise and maintaining that precision, maintaining that consistency. I actually feel like this is a very, very deep and personal experience. This is deeply personal. Like I said, it's not really about external validation of this era. It's more about what your body is starting to feel on the inside, how your nervous system is feeling when you say no to things, how you feel when you speak truth on something that requires you, or in a system or a situation that requires you to be quiet so that they can gain. And you know what? That exactness, this state, it will expose what was built on silence. So there's a bit of exposure here, for sure. Expose silence. So congratulations. Congratulations on being in this era. Okay? I'm going to leave you with two things, two questions to take with you. And I'll drop it in the comments as well. I think it'd be good to have a self-reflection moment even after this. So the questions to take with you are, how devoted am I to myself? Now that truth is non-negotiable. How devoted am I to myself now that truth is non-negotiable? And you can sit with this, you can meditate on this. And with everything you do, you need to ask, am I acting with integrity? Or am I still editing myself for comfort? This is the truth-telling era. Congratulations, you made it.